I would like to call the school board meeting for April 2nd, 2019 for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Please take the roll.
Mr. Barron. Ms. Bradley. Ms. Langford.
Here.
Ms. Ellsbernd.
Here.
Ms. Delagardelle.
Here.
Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Here. Ms. Anderson.
Here. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, I believe you had an edit.
I do. I would like to pull item number F3 for discussion in a work session. So pulling that item from tonight's discussion and action. So I would certainly be happy to make a motion absent item number F3.
Thank you. May I have a second? We have a motion by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, a second by Ms. Anderson. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes for March 5th, 2019. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
Move approval.
Motion by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, second by Ms. Langford. Please vote. Ms. Shelley, or Ms. Delagardelle.
I'm sorry, I thought I hit the button. I did hit the button. I don't know, it's doing that thing again.
Motion passes 6-0. Next item is district recognitions. So I will turn it over to Dr. Ahart.
Thank you. Early last month, the National School Boards Association announced Des Moines Public Schools was a recipient of their highest honor, the Magna Award. DMPS was being recognized for our work around educational equity, a top priority of both this board and our entire staff. This past weekend, several of our board members were in Philadelphia to attend the NSBA's annual conference, where Terry Caldwell-Johnson accepted the award on behalf of DMPS. In addition, Jilmara Mitchell presented at a master class to share more about our work with school boards and districts from across the country. So for tonight's recognition, I'm going to turn the mic over to Terry to share more about this honor and our work. But first, we'd like to present a brief video produced by the NSBA on why DMPS was being honored. Tim?
The grand prize winner in the Magna Awards 20,000 and over enrollment category is Des Moines Public Schools in Des Moines, Iowa.
You taught us to speak up,
to bring love to the party,
to be the best versions of ourselves.
O'Connor, you be a safe space for a tornado of teenage thoughts.
Make us feel like we belong in your bubble.
These words are powerful and are reflective of the approach taken throughout the Des Moines school system.
And looking to engage students of color specifically, we want to create a pattern where their art forms that they love to express through are validated and valued through the system of public schooling.
Educational equity isn't only in the arts at these public schools. The school district has taken on a system-wide approach.
The board has essentially narrowed our focus to be very clear about what is important to us. And one of those issues is how our males of color are doing within the district.
And equity programs are tailored to each school in the district.
I truly believe that this work needs to be customized to the school that we are talking about. We have, for example, a high school that decided to attempt to change parent-teacher conference this year. And they have 3 options for conferences. So as a family, you can pick one. One is a traditional conference format. The other one is the school staff comes to a place in the community. Another format that it's in-home visit.
I believe educational equity is really important to not only staff but to our students because everyone has a different home life. So having a place where they're learning that best fits them, I think is really important.
Taking on this equity work is really what public education is about. In its most basic sense, is leveling the playing field for everyone. If you live in this country, you have the right to a fair, free, appropriate public education.
To be recognized by your peers that your work is, meaningful and on target and something that other people are looking to is, it feels good. It's rewarding.
Congratulations to this year's grand prize winners.
colleagues.
So the applause at the event was obviously a little different than what we received tonight. But I have to say, I've been on this board for 13 years, and I have a lot of points of pride that I can point to, not only things that our students do, but things that our staff is doing and things that we as a board do. And being at NSBA and being able to receive that award on behalf of our district was probably the single greatest thing that's happened to me since my time on this board. It was fulfilling beyond measure. For those of you that have ever been to a National School Board Association conference, it is a production. And I felt like I was walking out to be on like the Jimmy Fallon show, all of the stuff that happened in the background and the rehearsal that we had to do. But I think the thing that was probably the most rewarding about being there and representing our district was all of the incredible accolades that we also received from folks from throughout the country, but in particular the response that we got from our folks right here in Iowa. It was amazing. They were so happy to not only support us, but to also be our champions in all of the work that we do. And so I really want to thank Tom and the staff, Matt in particular, for his hard work and really for being sort of one of the leads on this, but also Jomara, who totally knocked it out of the park on her presentation. Started her presentation by showing a video of students at Moulton in an exercise that they were undertaking around equity. And it set the tone for not only the message that she had to share, but the amazing work that's happening in this district. We were amongst 3 other districts that were being recognized, and obviously we were the largest district. But our work is so far beyond what I think other people are doing, and I think we should all share not only in the congratulations, but also the wonderful pride that we should all have. Not to suggest that we rest on our laurels, because we still have a lot of work to do, but this is really, in my opinion, an incredible celebration of who we are as a district, what we intend to do as a district, and how we go about doing it. And I can think of no better way to celebrate who we are but to be in Philadelphia with our colleagues and receive this award. So I have 3 things I want to do. First of all, we do actually have the award, so I'm going to have Jomara and Matt and Tom come down. We were also recognized in the ASBJ, American School Board Journal, and there's a wonderful article about our reform work included therein. And then another special surprise that I don't know anybody knew that we were going to receive was a $5,000 monetary award from an organization called Donors Choose. And they're giving this to us so that we can use it to support our equity work. We can choose however we want to invest these dollars. And then there's also another small gift card as well that can be given to a teacher or someone else that you think should receive it. So let's go down and...
Fantastic.
I already gave Phil a copy of this, so I'm keeping this for myself. This is the gift card, and then I don't really know much about this. Had representatives there that day, so I'll share that with you. And here is our grand prize. So. Oh. Now we're just awkward in the background. Thank you.
I know. Oops.
I'm so sorry.
I know.
Sorry.
I didn't come prepared to talk, but I have to tell you that this job is my dream job because we have a board that keeps equity in the forefront. We have a superintendent and associate superintendent that have this as a priority, and we have an amazing team and amazing students. So I couldn't have asked for anything else. It is my dream job, and I'm super proud of the work we have done as a system. As I looked back and thought of the last 3 years, I couldn't pinpoint one thing we're doing because we're doing a lot of different things. And that's what I think separates us from the other districts. It's a systems effort, and we have nothing but support. So I cannot wait to see where we land in the next 3 more years. It's going to be exciting. We still have a long ways to go, but I have no doubt we're on the right path for our students. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
I haven't even spoken yet. You're already clapping for me. Thank you so much. And I couldn't say it any better than Jamar did. And it's humbling to hear Terry describe the magnitude and the profoundness that this award actually grants our students, our staff, and our leaders. I will tell you that what gets this done is leadership at this table and making this a focus and a priority for what we do each and every day. And it's amazing what you can accomplish when you have humility and you have vulnerability in your leadership. So thank you all for what you do. Thank you for leading us and setting the course in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is consent items. We allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak to an agenda item, please go to the information desk to sign up. Remarks must be germane to the agenda, and we ask that you avoid reference to personalities and character attacks, as those types of comments serve no productive purpose. We appreciate your input. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with the speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table, with speakers' comments informing said discussion, deliberation, and determination as deemed necessary. Ms. Bradley, do you have the motion?
I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $12,042,229.67, and procurement card transactions in the amount of $609,576.62.
May I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bradley, second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Next, we have a public hearing. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item E1, public hearing for restrooms upgrade at Madison Elementary School? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Dr. Ahart, would you please introduce the matter?
I recommend the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by Wells Plus Associates for upgrades to the restrooms at Madison Elementary School, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
May I please have a motion and a second to approve the public hearing and superintendent's recommendation?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Anderson, a second by Ms. Delagardelle. Any questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Next, another public hearing. Public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item E2, public hearing for fiscal year 2020 budget hearing and adoption? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Dr. Ahart, would you please introduce the matter?
I recommend the board adopt the proposed budget for fiscal year 2020 following the public hearing in order to submit the budget to Polk County by April 16th, 2018, as required by law.
May I please have a motion and a second to approve the public hearing and superintendent's recommendation?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, second by Ms. Delagardelle. Any questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Next item on our agenda is item F1, request for open enrollment for the 2019-2020 school year. This is not an action item. Dr. Ahart, would you please introduce the item and give some context?
Yeah, sure. So we give this report every year. You can see the detail in the attachment. And it's essentially a report out on fluctuations or changes over time in open enrollment in and open enrollment out numbers for the district.
Does anyone have any questions, or is there any discussion on this item, board? Okay, again, that was a discussion item. Oh, Ms. Langford?
Never mind.
No? No. Okay. So we'll move on to the next item then. Next item is F2, monitoring report for preschool part 1. This is a discussion item as the final report for action comes later this year. And we have Susie Tallman and Susie Guest coming to give the presentation. And I don't know if I will turn it over to you to introduce yourselves and get started.
Great. Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
We're here tonight to give you an update on student achievement progress in preschool and to update you as to where we're heading as a department. So you'll be seeing some new data and also how we are responding to the data as well. However, tonight I have with me our early childhood administrator, Susie Guest, which many of you already know. Susie and her team have really been working hard this year to align a lot of the work to what we're doing in the comprehensive school setting so that we continue to provide a smooth transition for students and make sure that they're well prepared as they move into the K-5 school system. One of the things that you'll hear her talking a lot is in regard to instructional strategies that they and their team are focusing on with teachers and for students. But most importantly, I think the biggest shift that preschool has made this year has been the monitoring of the data that we're collecting. And when you're talking about our equity work, it's really making sure that every student is having an equal opportunity to the education that they deserve, but that also we're responding to it in a timely manner, having focused conversations so that we continue to help eliminate any gaps that could occur even as young as preschool. Just a reminder, our key performance indicators, we're looking at whether students are ready for kindergarten in the areas of literacy, math, and social emotional development. And we're also taking a look at parents and families and what their engagement looks like in the education of their child. All kindergarten students are assessed each fall, and that's the data that we'll be sharing with you tonight. Just a reminder that it is a screening assessment that's looking at whether students are meeting benchmarks and those who are not, which students are at risk. Just a reminder that it does, as being a screener, over-identify students for us, so we're making sure that we're capturing everyone. And I mentioned earlier just about the monitoring piece. With the data, you won't see it necessarily in the presentation, but Susie and her team are breaking it down by building, by individual classrooms, so we can really look at where those targeted and focused conversations or action steps need to take place. So here's a look at our kindergarten FAST data for literacy, and you're able to see over the past 4 years how our DMPS students are progressing and what their meeting benchmark looks like in kindergarten. This year we had 64.57% of students that are showing as being on track, and which is interesting because, every year we get a new group of students, so it's nice to see that our trend continues to increase. However, we'd like to see it even at a greater pace, but again, continue to make progress with that. When you break the data down even more and look at all of our subpopulations, you can take a look at the students that attended DMPS preschool and those who did not. And if we're looking at the fall 2018 FAST reading data, it just shows that our African American students have made the largest gains, ELL and free and reduced in comparison. Also, the next slide shows how students are performing on fast math, and you'll only see data for 1 year because this is the first year we've given this assessment, and so we'll be able to track that better over time as we move forward. It's nice to see fairly comparable to students, how they're coming in regard to reading. Math has been a focus and something that preschool's been working on over the past couple years, so we're seeing some gains from that. And again, if you look at the FAST math data and you compare students that attended DMPS to those who did not, and you look at all of our subpopulations, you'll see that ELL, multiracial, and Hispanic are our subpopulations making the greatest gains in comparison.
In addition to the FAST literacy and math assessments that are given at the beginning of kindergarten, we also give what's called Teaching Strategies Gold, which I know many of you are familiar with. This is mandated by Iowa Code, and it assesses all domains of learning. We're focusing really on the literacy, math, and social, emotional. There are 3 checkpoints. We give a fall, a winter, and we'll give another checkpoint in the spring to determine kindergarten readiness, the percentage of kids that are ready for kindergarten. We've made positive progress from fall to winter, and those graphs are actually in your monitoring report, so you should have those. But just in a nutshell, social emotional increased by 34% from fall to winter, literacy 52% from fall to winter, and math 41% from fall to winter. That's pretty typical of what we see year to year. So we're happy with that. And also all subgroups increased at a similar rate as well. Our 4th KPI that we take a look at is parent engagement. And this is parent engagement in education is a part of all of our performance measures. So we have multiple opportunities for parent engagement in education. And what we try to do is base it on what's called a family strength survey that parents fill out every year, because we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of families. It's just not haphazard what we provide for them or plan for them. It's based on this survey. So in looking at the survey, we give a pre and post assessment, and this fall, 75% of our families participated in the pre-assessment. And on the assessment, it assesses areas such as housing and employment and money management, food and clothing, health, and asks what they need assistance with, or how can we provide them more education in a certain area. And so educational opportunities are designed based on that needs and the input of the survey. And then if we know a family specifically requested something, then we will specifically personally invite them to that. And so we will give a post-assessment in the spring, and we hope to see the families' responses increase, that they're stronger, that they feel as a family or as a parent that they have improved because of the things that we've offered to them. And then we also use that data to report to our funders. Some of the parent engagement strengths, our parent-teacher conferences are at 94%, and that includes our home visits as well, and that's been very consistent over time. Home visits have a long history with early childhood because it is required in the performance standards. We have PAC time, which 51% of our families are attending, and that's parent and child together time. It happens once a week where the families come into the classroom. They do an academic activity with their child, create the activity, do it together with the teacher facilitating, then they can take that home, and so the instruction then moves into their home. So it's a real school-home connection. And then we also have what we call Coffee and Connections, and I know many of you have attended our Coffee and Connections. And those are monthly at each of our centers. And we provide, our focus is on health and safety, social emotional development, school readiness, and community resources. And so it's almost like a resource fair. So parents can come and go as they please. Our attendance it's been very well attended. And again, all of the things that we provide are based on that input from parents. We do also provide specific classes for parents. So, for example, this year, we just completed a financial boot camp, and that was through the Evelyn Davis Center. We have had our Johnson & Johnson Health Institute, so really the goal is to teach parents about health issues and keep them from going to the emergency room for things that they can handle themselves. And then one we're just finishing up at McKee, this is a pilot, and it's called Raising School-Ready Readers. And it's a partnership with Iowa State, where we bring a group of parents in for 45 minutes at the end of the day, teach them something with literacy, let's say concepts of print. And then after school, the school day's over, we bring the children in. And the parents work directly with the children on the strategies that we just taught them and move that into the home. Parents are able to. We're piloting that at McKee this year, but we're hoping to move it to all 4 centers next year. So the next question is, so what do we do with all this data? How do we respond to this data? Well, there's really 3 areas. The first area is instruction, and our coaching component, which is provided through TLC funding, has been very, very strong. So we'll continue that coaching component, and also our PLC work. Our PLCs have been a focus of our professional development this year. We've been focusing on 2 things, the Marzano's instructional framework, but then also the professional learning communities with Solution Tree. We were able to send probably 20 teachers, 30 staff members total, to a 3-day Solution Tree training in the fall, so we've been working closely. And then we brought in a speaker in January to speak to all teachers, and then we're sending another group of 10 in June. And really the focus is looking at data, student by student and skill by skill, to make sure we're providing students with what they need. And if we're not, what do we do about it? And it's learning from each other. So we've a strong focus on PLCs this year. Then the other thing is, how do we monitor this? I think Susie mentioned that the FAST literacy and math data, we have disaggregated that, and so teachers actually have their scores and know how their kids did on the fall assessments. And in addition, we've chosen 4 strategies to focus on this year, and they are previewing new content, helping students process content, reviewing content, and helping students practice skill strategies and processes. So over the course of the year, we've provided PD in those 4 areas. Once PD is over, the leadership team has gone in and has completed sweeps in the classroom. So we go in and we observe, and what we're observing for are these things. So is our PD effective? Is one of the questions. Are the teachers implementing with fidelity the strategies that we're focusing on during professional development? And our results have been, it's been really fun to be in the classrooms doing this. So if you take a look at this next slide, it's previewing new content. So I'll just try to explain to you. On your left side, where you see sweep 1, 2, and 3, we observed in 52 classrooms across the district, and you could see our percentage of what we observed. So we observed previewing new content. On the first sweep, 19% of the time. That went up to 21, and then after our 3rd sweep, that went up to 37. So that's quite an improvement in what we're seeing, and that really shows intentionality on the part of the teachers. The look-fors are down at the bottom. These are the things that we're looking for, and every box that has a square around it, that is an increase. So with previewing new content, we moved up to 37% of the teachers we observed this in. Again, now this is just a snapshot. We're not watching the full day. But you can see over the 4 strategies the improvements that we have made. So if you go to the next slide, It's helping students process content. And that went up, sweep one was 21%, up to 27, and now our third sweep was at 38%. We will be doing our fourth sweep this month in August. And again, our look-fors are at the bottom, and you can also see the boxes. Those are the areas that went up, what we were looking for. Reviewing content. Now that took quite a jump from 15% in our first sweep up to 60, then 67%, and we increased in all of our look-fors, which was great news. And then our last strategy is helping students practice skills, processes, and strategies, and that jumped from 29 to 56 to 57. So we hope to see another jump in all 4 areas, which again, the teachers realize that we're there and that we need to see results. And if we don't, then we can have those coaching conversations with them. And you know, these are all Marzano instructional strategies that have proven that, that those increase our rigor in the classrooms. So, and just this last slide, Teachers Matter. Improving teacher quality is the single most effective way to improve student outcome. And I believe that the professional development that we're doing and the monitoring that we're doing is increasing our outcomes. So, thank you.
Board, any questions? Ms. Anderson?
Are the sweeps walkthroughs?
Yes.
Is that what they are? Like, how long are you in there? Like,
It's on the average probably 15 minutes.
okay, just wondered. And then I really love the packed. Is that what it's called?
Pack time?
I mean, that's great. It really goes along with some of the things that I saw during the conference I just went to. That building that community with parents is super important. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
And I would just go back to the sweeps that Susie and her team are doing. The nice part about that is, I think in one of the slides it showed like 52 classrooms being visited. So you're getting a good, snapshot of what's going on just overall as a system. And, really helps not only to have intentional coaching conversations with staff, but also it helps Susie and her team to drive where they need to continue to focus on professional development and supporting teachers. And so it just gives, more targeted next steps for her and her team as well. Are there a certain number of sweeps, or walkthroughs, or?
What we try to get into every classroom 4 times a year. So yeah, each quarter. So we've got one more to go.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Kirsten?
When you had mentioned on your family strength survey that you got 75% participation, that seemed very high. Is that high? Was there something that you did differently this year that got better returns? Because I'm assuming our families are receiving better services because of that.
You know what? The parents fill out the family strength surveys at conference time.
Oh, okay.
And so teachers make a great effort to make sure to get as many of them as they can. And really, we've always done that because, again, that's in our performance standards.
Right, right. Yeah, I just didn't know if something was different because this seems much higher than in the past. So, thank you.
Ms. Langford?
Well, thank you all. To start, I think all of the work that you all are doing around family engagement is really exciting. I've gotten a chance, like you said, to witness some of it firsthand, but particularly that work that goes on at the beginning of the year to really understand families' needs seems just so important, and it's the right work to be doing. So it's exciting to hear updates about that. I think, as our board has a focus on equity, I do have some questions kind of looking at what does that look like on the preschool level? And I totally understand if you do not have these numbers offhand, and I'm going to do better as a board to see if other people value this information after asking. But I'm curious, of the African American students that are coming into our system, I know we have that data on the percentage of how our students are faring with DMPS preschool, non-DMPS preschool, no preschool. I'm wondering, do we have a ballpark figure about what's the percentage of African American students coming in with no preschool of the total amount of African American students coming into our kindergarten system? And the flip side of that is how many the percentage of African American students that are served by our DMPS preschool system that are entering kindergarten. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Did that
I
make
think
sense,
so. Let
Board?
me just see if I understand. So of the students that have not attended preschool, which there's, 1,200.
1,200, and what's a
Probably.
typical incoming kindergarten class?
Usually about 3,000.
Okay.
And so it's almost half of the students that are coming in have not had preschool, okay? So if I'm understanding correctly, you're wondering what percentage of those students are African American?
Yeah,
That's one
of the
question.
of the African American students we have coming in, what percentage have not had preschool?
I can find that out for you.
Well, before you do, we're getting
Yes.
disciplined in our work. So just because I have that individual question as a board member does not mean the entire board values that information. So I want to make sure that that's a board ask, but that is, I'll ask. But yeah, then the second piece is of the African American students coming in,
Coming into kindergarten.
what percentage of them have had Des Moines DMPS preschool? For me personally, as a board member, I think that we've had a lot of conversations around our equity work once they hit kindergarten, but since, it was a priority, early childhood education was a priority of this board, it maybe, and still is, even though it's shifting a little bit. I think understanding what's happening at that level in regarding to our equity work and with the district's wildly important goal of African American males might be helpful to know. But I'll ask if my board colleagues would find that information useful.
I think the information would be useful. I think what would take that further is wanting to know, is the right question to know the number, or is the right question for us to figure out how do we increase access for a group of students that we know this has a huge impact on? And that's probably more of an operational question, but I think it's what can we do as a board to support that, I think, or how can we, and that's not part of this. I think that's part of the broader thing of how do we impact for equity and just for outcomes for kids.
Just quick, how long would it take you to find that information?
I just work, it wouldn't take that long.
It would be a quick.
By next week, we could get that.
Well, I'm just saying, that probably would help us understand as well. If it's going to take you 15 minutes or less, great. If it's going to take you longer than that.
It will take Vicki Bennett.
Okay.
But Vicki's
Probably less
pretty
than
quick.
15
Yeah,
minutes.
she's
Okay.
pretty quick.
Okay, that helps too. Thank you.
I might add that maybe having overall demographic information about the racial and ethnic makeup of all of the students that attend preschool sets a broad context for then your drill down question. So that might be the universe that we start with, and then, because we do have information here about the percent of students based on race and ethnicity that are.
Those are their scores, I think.
Yeah, these are their
Yeah,
scores,
okay.
correct. But we don't know how that 55% who attended, who are scoring well on the math data or the math fast, compares to the number of African American students in the preschool. So
How about if Susie and I put together, Susie, let me put together some information that's responsive to that, but also frames the context, hopefully a little bit more meaningfully, and then if you have follow-up questions after that, we can certainly dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, the context for me, sorry, Madam Chair.
I'll comment.
Well, I was just going to say the context for me really is just trying to understand the picture of how our African American students are faring
Right.
in preschool. Getting to what you said, recognizing we have a problem, but understanding what that problem looks like, defined.
Who has access?
Well, we could probably tell a story based off of our own idea, but just understanding what it actually is.
Yep. April 17th, we have our next work session with next board. Would that make sense for that to be data that is brought to that? Then,
Okay, help frame our goals conversation.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I did have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
My final question was around the equity supports that are taking place on the preschool level. I know Jomara came in our last report and spoke about a lot of the coaches that we have on the secondary level. Is any of that happening within our preschools? What does that work look like there?
Well, that's a good question. We, all of the equity work, when we go to our leadership PLCs, we attend, my leadership team attends, and we take the information that Jomara gives us and we take it back to our staff. And that's what we're working on in staff meetings. Now, just of recent, we have been assigned a C3 coordinator.
Culture and climate.
Who's going to help us with that work, because we need some assistance. We need to take the next step. We've been the teachers. We've provided all the information that we've received at the district level, but now how do you take it one step further?
Yeah.
And so we are working with the C3 coordinators on that to put together a plan for next year of where do we go from here, which by the part 2 of our report, we'll probably have that put together, what our plan is, and I can get you a copy of that, or even put it in our part 2 report.
Yeah, I think we don't necessarily get a lot of data on this. I remember some reports maybe when I first came on the board about, actually this wasn't even preschool. I remember being struck by kindergarten, the level of suspensions that were happening even between Black children as early as, 4 and 5, and being really struck by that. And so I can imagine, even within my own family, I've had some experiences of Black children's preschool experiences as well, and how some of that disparity creeps in even that early. And so, I just want to, if this is the work that we're focused on, it starts at the very foundational level as well. I just wanted to lift that up.
In our last part 2 board report, so last June, I did provide you with the information on our BIR, our behavior incident report data. And so that will be part of our part 2 report as well.
Awesome.
And then what we'll hopefully be able to show is if we are disproportionate, which I believe we are, how that looks over the school year, and what we've done about that. Because what we're doing right now is our school social workers are, again, in their PLCs, they're looking at it student by student and skill by skill for social, emotional development.
Awesome.
And I think what we've done a nice job of in preschool is putting some of the systems in place that have been needed in order to collect the correct information or data, or to conduct the observations, so that we're collecting all of those pieces to be able to develop a better plan, but also I think narrow it down more specifically by building, by classroom, to see where we really need to be focusing a lot of our efforts. I think we've also had a lot of the training, but just how do you continue to deepen that and hold one another accountable, with staff, administration, and all the follow-up and conversations that come with that. They're really right at the cusp of that, but just being able, I think, to continue to dig deeper as we learn more.
Cool, thank you.
Ms. Caldwell-Johnson?
A real quick comment to your equity point. We hear a lot about all of the deserts that exist, the food deserts, et cetera, and there's obviously a childcare desert that exists in our community as well. And I think one of the other things that might be helpful to really sort of lift up the equity part of this conversation is not only understanding where our preschools are located and where our community partner preschools are located, but where we have pockets where, due to lack of transportation, lack of access, those sorts of things, we are not able to serve students. So again, I think if we really want to get to the heart of this equity question, I think there are a whole nother range of issues that bear some discussion to really help us illuminate, where we may have some opportunity to, move the needle and drive some additional placements for preschool opportunities in some places where they either just don't exist or people just don't have access. Which also goes to the wait list question.
Mr. Barron?
So, to the information request, on Terry's point, I think a fair way of talking about how areas of the district are served or unserved would be to look at the data of who had preschool, who didn't have preschool by incoming kindergarten class per building, so that we can see which buildings are seeing fewer kids coming in without preschool or without access to our preschool, but other preschool. And then in addition to the data that you're providing, Susie has told me, and as recently as this afternoon, I've heard her talk about survey data that, or how you've surveyed parents and asked parents questions and coming in to kindergarten about preschool, and if they didn't have their child in preschool as a 4-year-old, why not? And that's very easy to summarize and would probably be helpful context for the board as you consider who is being served and who's not being served. And then I'll just do 2 more quick things. So I saw Susie just a couple hours ago because I served the board on the Polk County Early Childhood Iowa Committee, and we had a subcommittee meeting on talking about funded partners, and DMPS is one of those, and for parent engagement. And so they were giving their report, and it was very good, and I think very enlightening to folks on that committee. And then earlier this morning, I also served the board on the Head Start policy committee. And so that group met today at Mitchell, and so I've had a very early education filled day, which is very appropriate for me because that's the stuff that I care about the most. And then when we're in kind of work session time about our work plan, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the stuff I'm trying to do to maybe address that wait list for next year. Some of the conversations I've had with Susie and Tom about how we could do that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susie.
Okay. Next, we'll go to item F4, governance process policy 1.4, agenda planning policy revision. Excuse me. This is a discussion item. The modifications that are on that agenda planning policy reflect the process used to request off-cycle monitoring reports. And so if the board, this is on as a discussion item right now. So I guess if the board has any suggested edits or any discussion on this right now, otherwise we'll put it on for action on the April 16th agenda. Is everybody good?
I'm glad we have a policy for, or we're gonna have a policy for this, so.
Great. Okay, we'll plan on that. Thank you. And then next is F5, the board work plan. And this is an item that I'll turn over to Kirsten.
Okay, so I spent a little bit of time playing with this. I don't know if you noticed, but I moved the done to its own tab because moving the lines was driving me crazy, and I thought this felt better because then we had a list of done things and not just like a never-ending list of things. So I want to bring us to the top, to the 360 evaluation, and I know that it says that we have some options for considering, and we mentioned that I think back at February 5th, but to my knowledge, we haven't made any further action. So I don't know if the board wants to do that in work session afterwards, or if we're going to continue to make a plan for how to do some action around that.
That is something that is something that we'll have as an action item with Tom.
Okay,
you and I will.
Yep. So put it on the
later.
Okay, so put it on the items for Tom. I can take it off the board work plan, I guess.
Yep.
Okay.
You guys are talking about the 360?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so you're going to take.
I'm gonna move it, and and Cindy and I will talk about it with Tom. That's what I was unclear about as I was going through this, if I couldn't remember where we had landed, so I'll make myself a note to move to items for Tom. And Cindy and I will talk with him about that. The equity policy, I know I had sent out a reminder to get some language, but I know that there was some conversation around the board table when we reviewed that policy that we'd like to do some changes with the language. I hadn't seen any suggestions, so I just wanted to see where the board was at of what we want our next steps to be around that.
Does everybody recall that we had it on the last
I think it was
agenda?
around the item number 6 as part of that policy. I will be happy to just say my inbox is still open, and I will take language edits, and I can send out another reminder email to people to send that to me, and I'll try to pull the policy back out of our agenda and attach it to that email so that everyone has it just right there in your inbox to make it really easy to send feedback. So,
And then when would you like that by? Because I would imagine, do you want to get this back on for discussion on our next agenda?
I would like, we've been talking about this policy for a long time, and so I think that I would like to get it.
So to have that on the agenda, then you need comments by the end of this week, probably.
Okay.
Right, because agenda items come to you by Monday.
Being Friday or Sunday?
Monday.
Whichever you
Then by
like. She
Monday.
needs them by Monday. So
Okay, so I probably
Monday
need
at
them by
5,
Friday
but-
so that the three of us have a chance to discuss. So I will send out an email, depending on what time we get done tonight, or in the morning, so. And this is an item for Cindy and I's, which is to the preamble, which I know, Cindy, you'd been working on. We have not.
Yeah, I used it that one time, but it needs work, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe you and I should set up a time in the next week or so that we can get that back on the agenda and figure out if there's a way that we like it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah, we
this.
could do it after we meet with Tom. Okay. And then there were a few more policies that I'm sorry, the last time that we had met, I wasn't sure what we were doing with edits around 1.8 and 1.11.
We're done with 1.8.
Okay, that's the one that was on the agenda tonight, right?
We're done with 1.11.
Okay.
Yep.
I will move to done, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for keeping me on top of things, friends. Okay. The city council meeting, the update that we had was that it was postponed, right? And that we're
Yes.
still waiting for it to be rescheduled. I know there was a doodle poll that was done. Did everybody, that was really my only note. That's why I left it on there, was I know there was a doodle poll and I wasn't sure. There's another delay now? Okay. Okay. Well, information about that forthcoming, hopefully.
Yep. We're kind of at the, now at the mercy, so.
Yeah. Okay. So management limitation, 2.3, treatment of employees, I think we had as a deadline for today, and Cindy and Terry, you were working on that?
Yep, and I have that to share during work session.
Perfect. We're gonna be moving stuff to. Okay, and then the external monitoring piece, you guys have that to share tonight as well?
Yeah, we don't, I do not have anything prepared on that, other than the 360 portion of it, which isn't really.
Okay, should we move
Yep.
it to the next?
Yeah, let's,
What I might offer on that is, I feel like over time, I was sort of starting to keep sort of a tickler of different things that we thought we thought we may want to pursue around external monitoring. Would it make sense for me to compile that list, send it out to everybody, and ask you to identify your top 3? And then from there, we can identify how we want to proceed, because recognizing that we can't do everything, at one time, but if we can at least get to a level of prioritization, that might help us to sort of slice and dice it and figure out where we start. I'd be happy to take the lead on that.
sounds great.
Sounds great,
Thank you,
thanks.
Terry.
I'm just gonna take my notes here. Terry will send out to board. Okay, process map of the vacancy appointment, or is that something we'll be ready to do during work session?
Probably not.
Okay.
I did get all of the survey responses back. I just have not taken time to actually compile that.
So maybe a
but
work session on the 16th?
I will, yeah, sure.
Or do you want a little more time, Terry? We can take more time. It's not like a rush item.
Yeah, everybody got
Yeah.
the notes,
Yeah,
so that was
we're
the
not going to
important
do that
part was-
again right away.
No, I
Right.
hope not.
So,
And the
yeah.
survey happened the idea was for everybody to get the survey and to get their
Right.
thoughts.
Yeah.
I know on May 7th, we're going to be having another conversation about 40X as part of a work session. So do we want to do it the second meeting in May? Does that make sense for you,
Good.
Terry?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. The 40X, we're doing our first section tonight. The other dates are in there for you. So the first board meeting of every month until June. And then this is kind of just an ongoing thing to continue to remove fail to language. Is that something we want to establish an ad hoc, or do we want to just kind of keep waiting, or?
There's probably a couple other policies to talk
Okay.
about at, during our work session that address that. And, yep.
Okay. So then other things that we have that are ongoing is to implement a discussion of policy governance. This scroll drives me crazy. Into the board agenda following our monitoring reports, to continue to review our policy edit list, KPI reviews, community workshop for the 2019 election, and then the treatment of parents, owners, and volunteers. We wanted to remove volunteers from that section and find another place for that so to be its own thing. So that's just kind of what we have left on our work plan.
Yep. And that treatment of parents, owners, volunteers, I've been playing with that one too and can share some stuff. So.
And so now if anyone has anything that they think needs to be added, or we can discuss it during work session. Yeah, Deanna.
Where are we with our elevated, our 2.0? I don't even know if board secretary is the right title for that position anymore. Is that no longer a board responsibility, but a district responsibility?
We're in the process. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Any other items to add, subtract, expand?
More than enough.
Yes.
So we did the student sessions.
Yes.
Yes.
What do we want to do with the information that we took from those? I have some sitting on my desk at work.
So the same for me. I have our posters from the one we did at Scavo. I think we probably should send them to Lori and Marcia.
Picture.
Just take a picture of it.
Picture of it and send it.
And email it to them.
And email it to them. Yep. Good. I need to write that down as well
And
for
then
myself.
similar to how we looked at the community ones, will we all get to take a gallery walk of those at our next board work session, hopefully?
I like
I
that
think we
idea.
could ask.
Yeah, I would really
ask
like
for
that if we
okay.
could.
So I will, because I need to take a picture of our stuff and shoot it to Lori, and I will ask that when I send that email.
Great.
Just real quickly, thanks, Rob, for getting us organized around that, and Tom for getting the staff prepared for us to literally show up. And yeah, it was good. Really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Thank you, guys. Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As just a note to my colleagues, I'm going to continue to kind of work with the formatting on this. So if there's something that would be helpful for you to stay accountable for your work that you think you want me to try to incorporate into this, I certainly can try to do that. I could mess around with some custom formatting, so every time we typed in someone's name, the box would turn a color or something. I don't know, whatever is helpful. So let me know, give me feedback if you want anything. Otherwise, I'll just do what I want until you tell me not to. So
Thank you. Thanks for taking care of that.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have informational items for the board's review. The audit committee update, notification of award of competitive quotes, preliminary plans for various school improvement projects, and the Studebaker geothermal utility easement. And then we have items of privilege. I'm just going to remind the board that I will be out this Thursday through next Thursday with limited access to email or texting. I will be out of the country, actually, so. Anyway,
Supposed to
so
leave you
I will
alone.
check, yeah. I will, I'm sure, check the emails at some point, but I won't be easy to get a hold of. I'll probably be sleeping when you guys are up, or maybe not, I don't know. Anybody else have anything to share?
I do.
Ms. Caldwell
I have a
Johnson.
shameless plug.
Okay.
So, this is just an invitation to an upcoming event that we are hosting. This is our third year for our Breakfast at Tiffany's event, which is in support of our Oak Academy Scholars Program. And this is a scholarship initiative that we started a few years ago in recognition that we have a couple of groups of kids that oftentimes either could benefit from a full day of preschool but only have half-day funding, or kids that have no funding stream whatsoever and need a funding stream in order to be able to actively participate in the preschool experience. So this is a fundraiser that we are doing for that. It actually features kids from our preschool in a fashion show, and it's a really fun event. And if anybody is interested in attending, I'd love for you to be my guest. And the other thing I should mention is just this year, we were the recipient of 2 rather significant grants to support Oak Academy Scholars. So it really has sort of seeded our effort. We got a $50,000 grant from Prairie Meadows and another $50,000 grant from the Dolls Trust. So we are well on our way towards creating wonderful opportunities for kids. And if anybody is interested in hanging out with me the Saturday before Easter, I'd love to have you as my guest.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
All right, so we're having our last CLAT coffee. Community Legislative Action Team will be holding the coffee on Saturday, April 13th in the Lincoln Library from 9 to 10:30, and we're hoping that we'll have our largest crowd. So please plan to come, bring a friend, bring a neighbor, bring some students. We want to hear your voices. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Dr. Ahart.
Yeah, I would just like to thank all the staff and community members that showed up at one or more of our 4 budget forums, and really want to call out Nick Lenhart and Cassandra Christensen for their work in putting together a very informative and useful presentation, and really went with the flow in terms of where the conversations went, because they went in a variety of different directions at each of the 4 forums. And I think we generated some positive engagement among some of our community members who hopefully will be following up with the last CLAP meeting on April 13th if they haven't been engaged already, and helping them better understand from a recent historical perspective what we've been up against with inadequate supplemental state aid from the legislature, and getting down to root cause and getting more community engagement to help the legislator get their priorities straight. So thank you for everybody of your participation. That's a tough time coming back right after spring break and families trying to get back into the groove. But we also, the other note I wanted to mention was, took away a lot of really good ideas about how I can communicate better that many of our community folks suggested through those forums. So very helpful all the way around.
I do have one more thing. Tom, can you kind of explain, so the next coffee is going to be focused on our ELL. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so we're going to focus sort of two areas of focus, both ELL and then students in poverty from a more in the school perspective. So Pablo Ortega, who's our director of English learner programs, will be there, and Keisha Barnes, the principal at King Elementary, is going to speak to the kind of what needs to happen differently with in a school where you have a high percentage of students who have some disadvantages that a lot of our legislators don't typically think about, all the different things that have to happen, supports that need to be in place for students to be successful.
Okay, thank you. I will adjourn the meeting and we'll hold our work session in about 5 or 10 minutes.